Welcome back to the Project Slumber podcast. It's Jerry. Today we're going to be talking more about the teenage perspective and my perspective and some stories about sleep in general and sleep health. So we'll get into it. Okay, so there is this sort of misconception and lack of understanding of sleep health for teens. So one of them is just simply why teens tend to sleep later because most, everyone kind of has that understanding through social media and through just common talk that teens tend to just stay up really late and are much more likely to, take spend all-nighters and this kind of this cycle of thought that teens naturally just sleep later, but that's just simply not true. There are actually scientific backing for this. So, as I said before in our previous podcast, during puberty, and as adolescents grow older and the ages from 10 to 13 and 13 plus, the natural melatonin, um, the hormone is produced much later in the night, and that is really the hormone that causes sleep. It makes you sleepy, and although the hormone is produced later, this still the actual need for sleep doesn't change that much. So the recommended amount of sleep is still 8 to 10 hours. And it just so happens that teens end up staying later than normal because of a variety of other factors that I'll talk about. So one of them is technology. I think in my perspective, because this episode is about teen voice, in my perspective, I'd say that the number one cause of teens sleeping later is technology, and I say that involves social media. Um, so just sending, socializing at night. Number two is probably entertainment, so that includes gaming, that includes watching Instagram reels, that kind of thing. That's again technology. So I think the number one is just technology, honestly, because teenagers tend to have this sort of independence, which I completely understand. I've been in that situation. Um, and other than that, I think it is stress. Okay. So, like, that means just academic stress, that could be social stress. Like, again, in my perspective, I think that it's hard. Lots of people don't understand that we're not just thinking about grades all the time, or we're not just thinking about, having fun or playing or, just messing around all the time. Teenagers often think about a lot of things, and it's just a really hard balance. It's a really messy, um, kind of life that we're trying to, fit together because there's this sort of one sense you're trying to be autonomous and independent. Others, you're still like a kid. You're still a teenager. You're still learning. There's lots of things you don't understand. So there's this kind of tension between, um, having your own sense of control and also perhaps being more stressed out than normal. So that's, I think, also a factor in sleep. Um, and honestly, I'd say definitely the least impactful one is school academics and homework. Lots of kids honestly say that homework is the reason why they stay up so late. And while that obviously might be true to some degree, the vast, majority is actually not that. It's simply an indirect consequence of, for example, technology, of stress. Because from my experience, I used to think that homework was a reason for my problems with sleeping, having good habits of getting up. But the real truth is that you can manipulate your time and manage your studies, no matter how much it is. It could seem like you have so much work, but there's always a way to manage that time. You have the control to use that time to your advantage, and it depends on how you use it. If you don't use it well and succumb to the two things that, like said before, like your stress and your um, technology and your entertainment, that's completely separate from the homework itself. That's independent. So that's from my experience. I think that's really true. And at the end of the day, for sleep, it's just managing your time and managing your stress. I think those are the big two for sure. And honestly, I'm not perfect because I know that I've stayed up way later than normal before, but I think by understanding these things is very helpful for you. At least like what is causing your problems. And so in the future, for example, for me, I know that I have to decrease my electronic use, and I have to find ways to, you know, relax my stress and manage that. And instead of, going into the cycle of despair and just wasting time, procrastination, use that as fuel to be more productive. So I think that's what, at the end of the day, it is, managing your time. Um, and yeah, so thank you. Okay, so that's it for this episode of the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to follow our social media links, and see you in the next one.